on in. Paris Jock, and I shall get set up for YouTube as well. Let's get YouTube rolling. There we go. Preparing to live stream. So while we're getting this set up, let us know where you are dialing in from, your name, your location. It's always wonderful to know who we have here. And thank you for taking the time to be here live, being here in the replay. And that's us streaming live now on YouTube. So hello to everyone watching there. You can pop your comments in the live chat and we'll be able to see that too. So hello and welcome. Fáilte agus beannacht to Resurrection of the Irish Wisdom School Global Online Gathering. In this container, we are retrieving the Irish and the Indigenous ways, for this is our time. And this is a 5-day global offering consisting of Shanachie storytellers, wisdom keepers, and divine guides who are keeping the sacred flame alight for humanity by being the voices of Ireland and our Indigenous lands. And this, from my heart to yours, is a gathering of a divine offering to the great motherland of Eru of Ireland. For she aches for her stories to be told, for her secrets to be shared now. And her emerald crystalline heart welcomes you home to her primordial deep roots, her riches, and her abundant wealth. And I'm your host, Emer Stassen, and I do invite you to Tar Isteach agus lig the ski, come on in and relax into this space, because we have a delightful, powerful, and a wonderful friend of a speaker, Jocelyn Starfeather, who is here today to join us. And I'm so honored. You're not long back from an adventure in Guatemala. So I'm so honored that you've made the space here to be with us today. So thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you, Emer. Thank you so much for creating this amazing gathering. And hi, everybody. Welcome in. I'm so delighted to be here with you all. And yeah, it's an honor to be here, Emer. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be able to share in this space and bring all the magic of Guatemala, into our conversation as well.
Yeah, it feels so divinely timed, actually, that when we're connecting in this powerful portal of solstice as well.
Yes.
And I'd love to welcome a few people in. Hello, Michelle, first off the mark from Suffolk, UK. Hello, Stephen from Northeast Kingdom of Vermont. Sounds beautiful. Hello, Michelle from France. Hello, Carrie from Colorado. Trisha from California. Hello, Janice from Canada. Welcome back, everyone. And remember, you can select everyone. Yes, you all have, and we will see who is here. And hello to everyone on YouTube. Hi from Cambridge, UK. Hello, Alicia from Oregon, US. Hi, Lika. How are you doing from the Netherlands? Lika was co-hosting on a retreat that we ran in Scotland recently. Hello, Evie from Dublin. Hello. We have someone in the house from Dublin. That really warms my heart. I'm not biased at all, but it's lovely. I have Dublin in the house. Hi, Joan again from Jersey. I love that many of you have returned for this live as well. Gorgeous. Hello, Roxanne from Northern California. Hello, Terry from Ardmore, Pennsylvania. Lydia from the Wicklow Mountains. Oh, thank you all for being here. Well, it's such a joy to be here live. Oh, hello, Monica from Balbriggan in Dublin. We've got more Dubliners and from Clare as well. Amazing, amazing. Because in this talk, we are actually going to be transported to the ancient sacred lands of Egypt, because Jocelyn's topic today is Egypt, a remembrance of our true power and our infinite nature. Wow, I cannot wait to go there. But first of all, would you like to share a few words about who are you now in this moment for people?
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you for that beautiful invitation. And I just want to say quickly, what's so present for me is the bringing together of all of these lands. We're talking about Ireland here in this event, but we're so connected all around the globe. And we were so connected in ancient times. The Egyptians were talking to those on the Irish lands and those in the Peruvian lands and the Guatemala. We were all so connected, and we're connecting here again, and it's helping with our remembrance as we are all tuning in from these different lands around the world. So it's just so beautiful to feel that. Thank you for creating this to allow us to have this gathering, Emer.
Yeah, you're so
So
welcome.
yeah. So I am an astrologer. I am a visibility coach for visionary entrepreneurs, really guiding those who know that they have a calling to change the world to get their amazing venture or business started and out into the world in amazing and abundant ways. And through the astrology, it's been so powerful. Um, really connecting in with the energetics of our times and what's coming in the future, and how can we best receive the energetics from the cosmos, from the earth, and bring that into our lives and do the alchemy and do the transformation that we're being called to now. So I guide people in these on these subjects, and I also am an avid student of ancient cultures all around the world. And I've studied Egypt for quite some time now, and I'm guiding people on beautiful pilgrimages in Egypt. We have two coming up in 2025. I was just in Guatemala and will be continuing much deeper studies of the Mayan lands and the Mayan ancient culture, which is still very much alive there. The language of the ancient Mayans is still being spoken all across the lands of Guatemala. The ancient fire ceremonies are still being held. It's incredible. So I love studying these ancient cultures and then bringing that through in all of these amazing ways. So that's a little bit about who I am.
That's so, so beautiful. And what's so inspiring about you and your work, Jocelyn, is you really do, you go where you're being guided. And that's been such an immersion in Egypt over the last few years.
Mhm.
And now you've been called to Guatemala and whatever unfolds through that as well in your deepening, which is very, very inspiring for all of us, for me and everyone.
We
Yeah.
must follow the miracles and synchronicities. I think this is part of what we're remembering now. And so I've learned in quite clear ways from the universe and my guides, when I follow those treasure hunts into the unknown, the most amazing things happen. If I try too hard to direct it or to have a plan, it doesn't work out so well. So yeah, I've learned that, and it's really an invitation to everybody to follow those miracles and synchronicities in your life.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very new earth paradigm, isn't it? And
Mhm.
brings like a such a delight and an ease to that.
Yeah.
Gorgeous. So would you like to share then about ancient Egypt and your topic and the significance of Egypt to the time that we're in right now?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel that these words keep coming through so strongly in everything that I'm studying. The time is now. The time is now. And that call comes not only from Egypt, but from many ancient cultures around the world, because these different ancient calendars, which we may get into in more detail here in a little bit, but all of the ancient calendars and the ancient timekeeping from all of the different continents point to this time now as a time of great change, a time of rising consciousness and awakening and great shifts of energy on our planet. And so Egypt tells of this as well. And Egypt is one of the most amazing places to go to remember. Now, I want to just from the beginning here honor Ireland and honor the ancient cultures in the area of Ireland, and the incredible stone circles and temples and beautiful, megalithic structures there, because those two are pointing to this same time frame, right? And we know there are so many. I'm not going to go deep into this in this talk, but that we have so much proof that the people in what is now the UK were in communication with those in Egypt and Sumeria, and that they were traveling on the water, they were traveling across, continents. So this is very interwoven with what others are speaking about in the conference, and I just want to say that from the very beginning. Now in Egypt, goodness, where to even begin? So Egypt is such a special place to visit and to work with and to study, because so much of the texts and the writings and the encoded information is still available to us. What was one thing that was interesting about visiting the Mayan lands is as I mentioned, the language is still alive, and the many, many dialects. I think there's 40 different dialects of the Mayan language, the ancient language, that are still alive and spoken in all these different regions of Guatemala and Mexico. So the language is still alive. The ceremonies are still alive. However, most of the texts were destroyed, very sadly. In the 1500s and the 1600s, the texts were burned, they were thrown into the fires, they were destroyed. We have 3 texts only remaining. It's the Popol Vuh, the Dresden Codex, and there's one other, I can't remember the name off the top of my head. These 3 texts are the only ones remaining. So this was interesting for me in thinking about that, and then thinking about Egypt, because in Egypt, every temple is a massive text. On the walls of each temple are writings, hieroglyphic writings, on a particular theme, on the theme of what that temple, the energy that that temple was built to hold and to convey. And so what's really amazing is that as we walk through the temples, or as we study and read about these temples, we pick up the energy of what is written there, and also we can translate and we can decode and we can read. So it's just incredible to see, for example, in the Temple of Edfu, we have the Edfu building texts. Now, these are just massive texts that are, I think, at least 20 feet tall, maybe even 30 feet tall, these stone walls that wrap around the outside of the temple. And on these walls, we see Thoth, we see the ibis bird headed god Thoth. He's presenting these texts. He's in a pose like this where he's saying, here, read this. And these massive texts tell of the original founding of the civilization of Egypt. So it tells that after this time of the Great Flood, the earth was covered in water. And then one mound rose, one small little part of the earth rose up out of the waters, and reeds started to grow there. And so the people knew that they could start their new civilization here. And that's where the original version of this temple, Edfu Temple, was constructed as the flood waters receded more and more. And so the texts tell of that original founding of the original version of this temple that you're standing in, if you're visiting there. And you can feel the energy of that. And it tells how the followers of Horus came there and built the temple in alignment with the stars, in alignment with the ley lines of the earth, so that we would always remember this time, which is called Zep Tepi. And it essentially means the beginning time. So after the cataclysm, after all was lost, again, we rose and we started the new civilization here. And from that came all of Egypt and all the other temples and all the pyramids. So that's just one example. Every temple holds a different energy. Every temple has its own different texts and writings, and its different, stone in the center of the Holy of Holies, or the inner sanctum area, and tells different stories about the history of Egypt, going far back beyond or previous to our recorded and documented histories that we have in the archaeological evidence. So something else that's interesting about Egypt, and then I'll pause for a moment, is that it's such an interesting thing. The archaeologists, so the mainstream, academic Egyptologists, and this happens in all the different archaeology, sectors around the world, there's a real reluctance to take seriously these stories like the one I just told you, where they're saying basically 12,000 years ago there was a flood. And after the flood, the primordial mound rose, and here's where we started the civilization. The mainstream academics and Egyptologists are very hesitant to take that as fact, right? And so they say, oh, it's just a mythology. It's just a mythology. But it's stated as clear fact in the texts. So this is something I think we're opening to now. You know, so many around the world are doing deep work around this, like Graham Hancock, Robert Bauval, so many others are daring to honestly risk their careers, step outside of what mainstream academia and anthropology is saying, and saying, look, there's a much more far-reaching story going on here. There is a much deeper history that's clearly written right before our eyes that we need to pay attention to, and we need to recognize it's not just a story. It's not just a mythology, which that's a whole other conversation we could have, because all the mythologies are very real and very important, but that's what they say in academia, right? It's just a mythology. But this is history. This is our incredible history of who we really are as humans, and the much longer time frame in which we have had advanced civilizations. So I will pause there for a moment. That's what comes through initially when you ask about Egypt.
Yeah. Oh, it's really fascinating because, I love going into libraries, or there's like where the Book of Kells is held in Trinity College Dublin, and you go in and it's like you can hear the words from the books, it's like you're absorbing all this wisdom that's contained in these books. And also it reminds me of a journey I had, a shamanic journey I had, going through the portal of Newgrange of Shi Anvru, and then going through these golden lined tunnels to Egypt. So as you were speaking, I was remembering that as well, of that connection, like you share. So it's really beautiful how it is this living library. And the connection when you talked about like the original founding of Egypt, and the followers of Horus came, and when you said the words, I wrote it down, then we rose, like we rose again after all the cataclysms, and here we are again rising now.
Yes.
We're back.
Yes, yes. And now we are 12,000 years later, which is significant because we are operating in these larger 24,000 to 26,000 year cycles, which is so powerful when we tune into that, because it foretells these times of great change and
Yes.
explains so much of what's going on in our world right now.
Yes. So would you like to share more about that, the precessional cycles that we're
Yeah,
in?
yeah, I think that's so important to our conversation. And, tuning into the fact that you're having this event during solstice week, we're just a few days away from the solstice being such an important marker in time and space that was so recognized by all of the ancient cultures. It's encoded in Stonehenge, it's encoded in Karnak in France, as well as Karnak in Egypt, and many other, temples and pyramid structures and stone circles around the world were specifically built to line up with exactly where the sun would be rising on the horizon on the morning of the solstice, right? So that's a part of this story of the great cycles that we're a part of. Now, if it's okay, I'll share some slides just to introduce this idea, because it really helps to have the visual. So here is a really beautiful chart depiction of these great year cycles, 26,000 year cycles. I'm going to go back a couple slides here. We'll get to that one in just a minute. So I'm going to show you this one first, because this is the theory of precession that's written in the textbooks and has been for at least 100 years. And it's actually being more and more disproven now. So I'll walk you through that whole thing, because it also helps us to get a deeper understanding of it. Essentially, we know astronomically that we have recurring cycles that are about 26,000 years. They're exactly 25,920 years. So what this means is that if you look at the North Star, which is what this is showing here, okay, the North Star, as the Earth is pointing to it, the North Star changes over time. So we know in ancient Egypt, for example, from the documentation there, that at 2500 BC, the North Star was Thuban in the constellation of Draco. But now, about 4,500 years later, if we look up to the northern sky or directly above us, we will see Polaris there. So this changes, and we've, scientists over the years have tried to create, okay, how does it change? Why is this happening? And every 25,920 years, we come back to the original North Star. Okay, we come back to the same one. So there's this cyclical pattern going on in these vast, vast cycles over so many millennia. So this is the old theory. The theory says that the Earth is tilted on its axis, which it is, and that there's a wobble. And because of that wobble, as the Earth is, so many things are in motion here. The Earth is going around the sun, the Earth is turning on its axis, and there's this wobble happening so that over time, we are pointing at these different North Stars because the Earth is basically kind of drawing this little oval in the sky if we were to go all the way out from its northern axis. Of course, in the southern hemisphere, there are the southern stars, right? The South Star, we could say, and a different set of stars down here, which is not delineated in this picture. But this is what's happening. Now, at the same time as the North Star is changing over time, the place where the sun is rising on the spring equinox changes over time as well. Right now, the sun is rising on the spring equinox in the northern hemisphere, right where this is pointing, in this line between the Pisces constellation and the Aquarius constellation. So this also is changing on that exact same 25,920 year cycle. So that, 25,920 years ago, the sun was also rising on this line between Pisces and Aquarius. And that's where we are once again right now. If we look at the opposite side, this line between Virgo and Leo, we can say for sure, for certain, the sun was rising here halfway back in the cycle. So basically about 13,000 years ago. And that's the time when we know the Great Flood occurred. The Great Flood that's written in all of these ancient texts, the Sumerian texts, the Egyptian texts, many different texts around the world. And we now have an ample amount of geological evidence that Great Flood occurred approximately 12,500 to 13,000 years ago. So this was the opposite point on the precessional cycle from where we are now. Now, the new theory I want to tell you about, it's really interesting. And this is based on Sri Yukteswar's work in this amazing book, The Holy Science. And Walter Cruttenden has kind of brought this into the modern research. And it says this new theory is that the sun is a binary star. So about 80% of the stars in our galaxy, in the Milky Way galaxy, are binary stars, meaning they're revolving. It's two stars revolving around each other, both playing into each other's gravitational field. And wherever our sun goes, the whole solar system goes. We're like this unit. So it's all, Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, all of us out to Pluto and the asteroid belt. Wherever the sun is traveling in these vast regions of space, it's bringing the whole solar system with it. So this theory is really fascinating because if we are then orbiting around this other star and in an interplay, in a relationship with this other star, we're moving across huge regions of the galaxy. And as that relationship with that star changes, the energetics of our solar system and our planet change. And as we move through different regions of the galaxy that hold different energies, our consciousness is changing over time. So it's not that there's a wobble, and recent research has actually shown there's not a wobble. We don't see any sign of a wobble when we look with our like great telescopes out. We're not wobbling. And it's actually quite likely that the sun is a binary star. So this is a much more likely scenario here. And it's really quite fascinating if you just think of the whole solar system moving through vast, vast regions of space. And when we're over here in this region, it might be a very high frequency energetic in that area of the galaxy, and our consciousness is higher as we're going through that place. And then we come over here and it changes. It might be a lower frequency. There might have been, galactic wars going on over here, and our consciousness falls. And in these great 26,000 year cycles, we're constantly in flux, and our consciousness rises and falls over these great spans of time. Is that all making sense so far, Emer and everybody?
Yeah.
Write in the chat, let us know if that makes sense. What you
Yeah,
think.
I'm going, wow, that's amazing.
It's fascinating. I love studying these things. Let's see what everybody's saying in the
Absolutely.
chat. Steven says, absolutely. Great. I'd love to hear anybody's thoughts on this. I just find it so wild and incredible. And Michelle says, yes. Carrie says, yes, makes sense. So fascinating. Yeah. So we're on this roller coaster ride through the galaxy. Oh my gosh. How exciting is that? Now, this is another view of it that brings it more into looking at it through the zodiac signs where the sun is rising over time. So as we saw in the other chart, we are here, you are here. This chart was made in 2022, but we're still basically right here because this happens over such a long span of time. The sun right now on the vernal equinox in the northern hemisphere is rising right on this line where it's right in between the this side of the Aquarius constellation and this side of the Pisces constellation. It's quite fascinating. So we're literally right between those two, and we're entering into the age of Aquarius. And again, on this chart, we can see that if we go straight across 13,000 years ago, approximately, it was the end of the last ice age. And it was during this age of Leo that the Great Flood occurred. That was just such a monumental event in Earth's history that it's written in all these ancient texts. And so since that time, the sun, as it rises on the spring equinox, has been moving this way gradually. It takes the sun about 2,150 years to move through a whole zodiac sign. So every 2,150 years, we enter a new great age. So we had the great age of Leo. This was when everything was destroyed and then started to be rebuilt. And this is actually the time frame where Göbekli Tepe and Karahan Tepe and these very, very ancient sites that are 11,000 years old, 11,500 years old in Turkey that have recently been uncovered and very reliably carbon dated to those really great long ago ages. They were built toward the end of the age of Leo. So when we emerged from the flood, we had high capacities, we had high technologies. And so a really big question then is, if we still had those capacities after the flood, what happened since then? Because clearly we experienced some sort of a fall, some sort of a forgetting of our consciousness. Now, still, even in the age of Cancer, and in the age of Gemini, these are the times when, Stonehenge was built probably in the age of Gemini. The pyramids were likely built near the end of the age of Leo, although that's not what the academics will tell you. But we have more and more evidence, again, from Robert Bauval, Graham Hancock, Robert Schoch, these amazing researchers are finding that the Sphinx and the pyramids in Egypt at Giza were probably built in the late age of Leo, around the same time frame as Göbekli Tepe. So we still were doing incredible things throughout these times, but sometime around the age of Taurus, the age of Aries, we fell into a lot of war, especially in the age of Aries. A lot of war was happening. We had Yeshua, Jesus, arrive and wish that would have created the great shift that we needed, right? And in some ways he did. But in some ways, our civilization was still too much in the forgetting to really fully appreciate what he was bringing. And so now we stand here opposite to this end of the last ice age, opposite to the great flood times. And so if we look at the ceilings of Dendera Temple, for example, or many different records in the astrological encodings from these temples, it is pointing to now as this time of great change. If we look at the Mayan calendar, right, 2012, we're entering from the fourth world into the fifth world, the fourth creation into the fifth creation. It's a time of great change. We're at the end of the Kali Yuga if we look at the Sanskrit texts. Now, what I want to say about all this for us and why we need to know about this, and I'll stop the share now because I just want to chat again. I have a very interesting metaphor for all this. So you want to think about the fact that in the ancient times, all these ancient cultures, they were watching the sky. They were paying attention to the shifts in energetics of the earth. They were fully tuned into these great, great cycles. And so they knew, we consult astrology and astronomy. It will tell us what's happening next. They were also tracking these 26,000-year cycles, which is incredible because each star only moves 72 or only moves 1 degree every 72 years. That's a human lifetime. So you have to really closely watch and track these things over many, many, many generations to know it, but they did. And so they knew about these great cycles. They knew when the rises and falls would be happening, and they were able to adjust accordingly. So if we want to think of this in a really cute and funny metaphor for ourselves, think of any animal, and even specifically, let's think of a squirrel. Okay, so a squirrel knows the cycles that it needs to know. It knows in the summer that the winter is coming. It just knows, right? And so the squirrel makes preparations, especially toward the end of the summer, the beginning of the autumn. It's gathering nuts. It's making its nest warmer. It's getting ready for the cold months. And so that when the winter comes, the squirrel is prepared. It has enough food. It has a nice warm nest all padded up. It has everything it needs to survive and thrive through the winter. Same thing for when we know the summer is coming. So that squirrel knows it doesn't need an infinite amount of nuts. It just needs enough nuts for the winter because it knows after that the summer will come again. It knows that these cycles are going to be continually shifting from one to the next. And so it stores enough nuts to get through the winter. Then as the springtime comes, the food sources revive and the squirrel's happy and all is well. Now, we have forgotten how to track these greater cycles that impact us. So we are in this time where we don't know what's coming next and we don't even know what's happening right now because we've lost track. So we're like a squirrel that didn't prepare, right? And we're just like running around saying, oh my gosh, what is happening in the world? This doesn't make any sense. Everything's gone crazy. Everything's chaotic right now. But if we remember what we've always known, it's that these larger cycles are happening. And this right now is the time of great change. So rather than running around in like fear or worrying about the chaos, what we need to be doing is knowing this is all in perfect alignment. And we have much greater capacities and capabilities than we've been told. And we can use them, and we're really here to build the new world right now. If we're fully tuned in, as everybody on this call, I'm sure is aware of this, right? We're here now, back together again to build the new world. We're here to hold the highest energy. We're here to hold the light. And all is in perfect divine alignment. Now, we may see many disturbing things going on in the world, just as the ancient people who had to survive that flood, they went through a lot. We're going through a lot in the world right now. A lot of difficult things are happening. But if we watch these cycles, the difficult part never lasts forever. And we are actually rising in our consciousness. We are coming back into an area of the galaxy where we can have that high consciousness again, where we can have these high capabilities and capacities in what we can create again. So that is why we're remembering so much right now. So we want to be the squirrels that are prepared and that are like, yes, I know what to do right now.
I love that. I love that. And it makes so much sense. And what I love about to take meaning from your metaphor as well, the squirrels, they don't, oh, excuse me, they don't always remember where they buried their nuts or the acorns. And so they're assisting the forest for the trees, the oak trees to grow. So I love that part too. So even, amidst all that, while we're being prepared, even still, the forests are still growing.
Mhm. Yeah, that's so beautiful. All of nature works together in this harmonic way. Absolutely. And I would take this little analogy one step further too and say the previous versions of ourselves have buried nuts for us to use now. We could say nuts, but I'm going to say treasures, ancient texts, ancient codes within ourselves that can be awakened in our blood and our DNA, and things to help us remember now that are meant to be uncovered by us now. And, I really love to think of that as like the previous versions of ourselves in our previous lifetimes, maybe 12,000 years ago when they were building the pyramids, where they were building Göbekli Tepe, after the flood, um, left us these treasures and it's helping us to remember. And that's what happens when we go to Egypt, as well as all of these amazing sacred sites around the world. The remembrance like surges through us
Yeah.
because we left these messages for ourselves. Mhm.
I love that. And there's something about the divinity of the timing. As you said at the very beginning, the time is now. This is it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Exactly.
Wow, that's beautiful. And you also mentioned the ancient technology that the Egyptians had. Would you like to share more about that and its significance for us now?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so much to say about that too, of course. So, something to keep in mind is when we're in our times of highest consciousness, we have much greater capacities and capabilities than what we're like currently experiencing. Part of why we're not able to like go build a, pyramid like the Great Pyramid right now is because we've been told that we're limited. We've been told that we're small. And so this is part of what we're breaking free from right now. This is part of the remembrance. So there's a vast acceleration happening in the technologies within us. And this is what I think is most important for us to know right now. And that is related to what they knew in ancient Egypt as far as ancient technologies or high technologies is the highest technology is life, life itself. And we hold that in every cell of our being. So if we look at what they were doing in ancient times, um, we know they built the Great Pyramid. Now, there's a really cool documentary. It's called Great Pyramid K 2019. Weird name, but that's what it's called. That basically, if you're interested, you can watch this and it goes in great detail through all the reasons why basically it was impossible that anybody built the pyramids. That there's 2 million granite blocks, each weighing between 2 and 150 tons. And they got them all the way up there to the top of the pyramid, with these like very limited tools. And even building the inside of the pyramid, they would have run out of air, but somehow they did that anyway as well. It's like there's so many impossible things. That's one example. Another example we see, you can see this really strongly in the construction in Peru. There are stones, and these are megalithic stones, like just massive. These would be 150, 200, 250-ton stones of very, very hard material like granite or diorite or these really, really hard stones that appear to just have been melted and molded into the exact shape they wanted them to be. And many, many, many of these placed into these walls. Like if you look at Sacsayhuaman in Peru, for example, these massive stones. I'm actually going to see if I can just bring up a picture of that because it won't take but a minute. And it's really worth seeing. Just massive stones that fit perfectly together. Sorry, one more second.
What was the name of that documentary again? Great Pyramid K
K 2019.
2019.
Yes.
Asking.
So here's an example. This is just a random thing I'm pulling up on the internet, but it illustrates it. So like, here's the people. Here are the stones. Now these stones fit perfectly. Not a single one is the same shape as any other. And you can't slide like a tiny piece of paper between any of these. That's how perfectly they fit together. We see this in Egypt too. We see this in many places, but this one, Sacsayhuaman, is like such a great example. Now, these are the really ancient construction. You can see on top, it doesn't show it fully in this picture, but see the smaller ones on top? They were trying to do the same thing later, but they couldn't quite do it as big as as the original builders. Okay. This kind of thing, right? What capabilities did we have? And it's a really big question that nobody knows the answer to. Or did we have some help from our star families? Maybe there's a lot that, could have been going on that we don't understand. But what's important to know is whatever the technologies were that allowed us to do things like this, to build the Great Pyramids, to build Göbekli Tepe, to build Stonehenge, right? We had very high consciousness capabilities that allowed us to use technologies that were available around us on the earth in nature that were probably about utilizing our life force energy, utilizing the mind. Maybe we were able to melt stones with our mind. Or maybe we knew how to use water and fire and the elements in such a way to melt the stones and mold them together. And we could go on and on about this, but it's just to say, at these times of high consciousness that we see evidence of in these incredible megalithic structures, we had very high capacities and capabilities. Now, those were not coming from some, machinery or some kind of computer, I guess anything is possible, but probably not, right? It looks like this was coming from the natural world and from our own capabilities. So at this time, when we're being faced with AI, we're being faced with, there's people already getting computer chips put in their brain. There's, we're messing with our genetics. We're doing all these alterations that are not in alignment with the divinity of nature, with the sacredness of nature. And we need to be really careful with that. So what we can learn from these ancient cultures is we already possess the capability to do that. It's just about remembering to do anything we want to do, including build megalithic structures or change our reality or whatever we would like to do. But we have fallen in, for many millennia now, we've been in a dark time and we're beginning the rise. We're beginning the remembrance. So we want to keep in mind as we're faced with all of these very artificial technologies, that the true technology is within ourselves. It is in the earth. It is in every plant, every animal, in all the elements, fire, water, earth and air, and it's in the mountains, it's in the oceans, it's in that which is alive and living here on our planet. And that's what we really want to focus on, maintaining the sovereignty of. We don't want to let the sovereignty of our own bodies be taken away, like these computer chips in the brain is clearly a really bad idea. I think all of us can just feel in our gut and in our heart that that's a really bad idea. We want to be sure to maintain what I call our organic sovereignty, recognizing that life is the highest technology of all. Yeah.
Wow, so beautifully said. And gosh, I resonate deeply. And there's been such beautiful comments here as well. And Kira is asking, do you think this technology could be from Atlantis? And maybe even back further as well? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so that's a great question. And I believe that this evidence, like these incredible structures that we find, that Sacsayhuaman, the pyramids, Göbekli Tepe, Stonehenge, we could go on and on, Machu Picchu, you know. I believe that these point to the fact that there were very advanced civilizations before the flood. And I think Atlantis was one of those. I think Lemuria was one of those. And maybe there were even others. Those are the ones that we seem to have memory of, right? That are in our consciousness. Whatever we call them, I believe that, yes, there were these very advanced civilizations. And when the flood happened, I think that they were mostly destroyed. And this is, you can read, you know, I recommend reading Magicians of the Gods by Graham Hancock. It really gives quite an incredible overview of this topic. The floodwaters made at that time, and again, we have geological evidence of this now, right? So this is really quite well proven at this point. The floodwaters made all of the oceans rise 400 to 500 feet around the world. I mean, that is a really significant. So, for example, the whole area of Indonesia used to be an intact landmass that was called Sundaland. Now it's just islands. But they're finding there's already one discovery of an incredible temple below the water there in Indonesia that we don't know how old this thing is, right? And it's massive. So I believe that a lot of the ancient civilization structures or evidence that we're going to find will be actually under the oceans. And there's increasing evidence being done about this as well. Also, the UK and the outlying islands there were a larger landmass called Doggerland. That's really fascinating to look into. So when these floodwaters rose, it was such a massive change that any areas near the coast before the flood would just be completely gone. So I think that's why we're not finding ready, you know, easy evidence of these ancient civilizations. But if we look at the records that are in the texts, that are in the papyruses, that are in the ancient Sumerian texts, especially in Egypt and Sumeria, they have these incredible kings lists that go back 36,000 years, listing all the kings as a factual document. You can look up the Turin Papyrus, Turin Papyrus. This is from Egypt. It's now in the Turin Museum in Italy. That's why it's called the Turin Papyrus. This goes back 36,000 years, and it says first there was this king, then there was this king, then there was this king. Now, when we get into the time frame that we have historical records of, which is about 3150 BC, we see King Narmer, who we know who he was in Egypt. He was the first pharaoh that we know of in the historical record. And we see every pharaoh listed completely accurately after him, all the way till the end of the empire, the end of, you know, the Egyptian civilization. Those are all exactly correct and exactly in the right order with the exact years listed. So again, the academics, the anthropologists dismiss everything before Narmer, going back 36,000 years ago. But why would we dismiss that if it's in the exact same record as all of these ones we know for sure and are completely accurate? What's really interesting about the King's List is both in Egypt and in ancient Sumeria, the further back you go, the original kings that are listed there were gods. So the first one is Thoth, and then it was Osiris, and then it was Horus. Those might not be in the exact order of the Turin Papyrus, but it's basically like that, right? So the first, I don't know, 7 or 8 were gods, and they ruled for like 3,000 years, 5,000 years, this kind of thing. And then it comes down into what seem to be like demigods, the followers of Horus, the Shemsu Hor. That's who's written about at Edfu Temple. And they ruled for a certain thousands of years. And after we get through the list of the demigods, then we get to the humans, starting with Narmer. How fascinating, right? So yes, I think there was a lot going on before, before what we have confirmed historical evidence of. And again, I want to say, we do have confirmed historical evidence of it. It's just being dismissed. these kings lists. It's quite clear, you know.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Gosh, and it's all part of the weaving and parts of the jigsaws. As someone mentioned, it's the jigsaw pieces coming together.
Yes.
Yeah. And
And this
someone
is
come,
this
yeah,
Oh, I was just going to say, this is this treasure hunt we're on right now, right? We're like picking up these puzzle pieces, putting them back together. That's one reason I was so excited to be exploring the Mayan lands, because I was seeing these correlations in the imagery and in the way things are expressed between the Mayans and the Egyptians. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing. Because, yeah, they probably all came from a more centralized, higher civilization that, you know, held these certain values and magical practices and shamanic practices, and then got dispersed to different ends of the earth when the flood happened. But they carry, I mean, there's an image. Do you mind if I tell you about one of these?
please do.
This is
Yeah.
fascinating. I'll also bring this up on the screen because it just, you know, I feel imagery helps to convey these things even better. Um, so this is Osiris. Um, let me just bring it up. So part of the imagery around death and rebirth and the eternal nature of the soul, you know, in ancient Egypt, huge amount of that is expressed in the mythology around the god Osiris. Now, this is an incredible image. I believe this one is in Dendera Temple. And here we have the deceased Osiris, but he has these shafts of wheat growing out of his body. You can see them all down the length of his body. This is representing Osiris as the god of agriculture, because after he passes away and he becomes Lord of the Duat, he becomes the life force that pushes up the plants from beneath the earth, that brings life renewed ever eternally once again. So I know of this image, and then I was sitting and listening to this Mayan elder and wisdom keeper that was speaking to us, and he was telling about one of the images in the Popol Vuh, one of the main Mayan texts, and he said, in this image, the grandfather is shown as deceased, and he has the corn growing out of his body in rows, and it represents the rebirth of all life. And I was like, oh my gosh, you have to see this, you know. And he was like, yeah, it looks almost exactly the same. And these are the kinds of moments I was having in Guatemala, you know, and it's further confirmation that there were these centralized, highly advanced civilizations that had to scatter to the opposite ends of the earth, but that were carrying the original wisdom.
Yes. Yes. I've read about people talk about the 12 root races
Mhm.
that were dispersed to like
Yeah,
the keepers of the like the grail keepers, you know, holding this wisdom safe and sacred until it was time.
yeah.
That is fascinating. Wow. And someone's commented, Roxanne commented back when you were talking about the precession of the equinoxes, and she asked if I wonder if we then interacted with different galactic beings, which I
Mm.
found interesting then when you were talking about the advanced technology of the
I just got
Egyptians.
huge chills. Yes. Wow. Thank you for that comment. Yeah. Wow. I'm getting a big yes on that. It makes total sense, right? As we're the whole solar system and the Earth with it is moving through these vast reaches of the galaxy. Yes, we're coming into contact with our different star families. I just have like such complete full body chills. It's kind of wild. So, yeah, what an amazing. Yeah, thank you so much for that. I absolutely agree.
Yeah.
And maybe, you know, we're having this increased extraterrestrial contact right now, right? I mean, we had congressional hearings in the US Congress in the middle of November with all of these like high government officials from the Air Force, from the Navy, because we're now seeing them underwater in the oceans, from the Pentagon, from the CIA reporting on all the different craft that they've seen and many different, you know, experiences. And we have these, whatever they are, these mysterious drones now all up and down the East Coast where I live. Nobody knows what they are. Nobody knows what they are. So maybe as we're coming through the part of the galaxy where we're traveling now, at the cusp of the age of Aquarius, maybe this is exactly where we need to be to reopen those communications. It's part of the consciousness rising.
Isn't that gorgeous? And we're meeting our new friends, our old friends, new friends, these galactic beings.
Yeah, right.
That really is. Wow. Yeah.
What
Yeah.
an amazing time to be alive, right? I mean, it's a not an easy time to be alive, but it's incredible. And this is so important that the intensity, the challenge, the chaos is the magic breaking back through, right? So we want to keep that in mind as much as it is difficult to navigate, as much as there are things happening in the world that we don't want to, we don't want that to be going on, but it is part of the massive shift and the raising of consciousness and the breaking down of the old world so that we can build this radical new world together. So
Yeah.
we got to trust the journey right now.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And Stevens feels that contact will be made again in the next 2 to 5 years, depending on us. Yeah, yeah, very interesting. Yeah,
The
yeah,
astrology confirms that as well. Uranus moves into Gemini in July 2025, July 7th, 2025, and will be in trines to Pluto in Aquarius from 2025 to 2028. It's just, I mean, it like says in red bold letters astrologically, extraterrestrial contact, So I really have no doubt about that. And it's already happening.
yeah. And Evie is on YouTube is asking, they are calling us, have you ever had visitations?
Asking me.
Yeah, have you ever had any visitations or dreams? I guess, is that
I've
about
had
galactic
dreams.
beings?
Yes, I haven't had what I know to be a physical experience with extraterrestrials. There's part of me that's like, oh, I wish I had. Part of me is terrified of that. But I haven't had those. There are certainly people who have had those physical, contact experiences. I haven't. I have seen them in dreams. I have seen them when I'm in the pyramid in Egypt, for sure. And different places like that seems to especially wake up these connections, opening the star portals, as we walk through the temples and pyramids in Egypt, we are definitely moving through star portals. So in those ways, in the imaginal ways, I have.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
which is also real as well, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes, it definitely is.
So where I live in Scotland, in Falkirk, it's called the UFO triangle, and
Oh,
the
interesting.
most UFOs have been, and it could be have been spotted, reported. It could be very enthusiastic people reporting it, but yeah, I'm open,
Amazing. And
open to the contact.
that's got to be connected with the prevalence of crop circles in the UK, right? It must be.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And the potentiality of what you're sharing and people's comments, it opens up so much more, oh, beyond any limitations. So yeah, really,
And that's
really,
who we really are. We actually have no limitation. We actually have all possibilities in the galaxy and the universe available to us.
yeah. And
Oh,
Evie's sharing, so I'm gathering you must have had contact, Evie. They're very gentle so as not to create fear. Love is the best shield. That's gorgeous. Yeah,
beautiful.
thank you. Wow, Jocelyn, I know we're coming up to the hour. We're just flown by. You have a
Really.
gorgeous free gift for people. Would you like to share about that, your winter solstice ritual?
Yeah, absolutely. So as we're honoring these great cycles, let's really honor the cycle that we are in right now at this magical solstice time, the thinning of the veils, and this moment of, in the northern hemisphere, it's the winter solstice. So this moment of the light returning to us that is so deeply celebrated and has been since the beginning of time, on our planet. So I have this beautiful free gift that you're welcome to enjoy, which is about how to create your own personalized winter solstice ritual. And it is a beautiful guide that will assist you in doing that and considering which elements you might want to bring in, what intentions you might want to set, and how to ritualize your intentions, and lots more. So I hope you all really enjoy that.
It's perfect for these times, and so many gorgeous comments. Lorna's sharing. Many people speak of having been borrowed for a while, like while asleep, like a waking dream. Very
Yes.
interesting. And Joan is sharing just what an incredible talk this is, Jocelyn. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you,
So
Joan.
you also mentioned you've got 2 retreats coming up in Egypt in 2025. Is there anything else you could speak about that and anything else you have coming up right now as well?
Yeah, let's see. I recorded a video yesterday, if you look for the Sacred Planet YouTube channel, that was about the astrology of the solstice and the new year. So you are all welcome to check that out. We have really powerful astrology coming in for the solstice and the new year. So it's good to know about these things. And as I said, this is like how we consult the divinity and we can see what's coming next. And in there, I also announced an astrology course that I'll be guiding in January 6th through March 3rd. So anybody who's interested, you're welcome to check that out. I love sharing about astrology and applying that to our own, your own birth chart and learning what is in store for you and what magic is coming up for you. So there's that. And yeah, 2 Egypt tours. One will be in April 2025. The other one will be in late October, early November 2025. So you can check that out on my website if you're interested. Yeah.
Wow, amazing. And I'll put your astrology talk, I'll put it on your speaker page as well.
Oh,
I've
thank you.
watched
That's
halfway
wonderful.
through it and it's so amazing, all that you share. Yeah. And Rena has said she just popped in but was guided to. So thank you. Yeah. And Jan is asking, how do we access your guide, your free gift? And I've put the link in the chat. I'll pop it in again and it is on Jocelyn's speaker page. So that's it there. Oh, like Kenya, Renya. Is that right? Kenya, Renya. Yeah. It's like
Beautiful
my
name.
name. Yeah, it is beautiful. I say Emer Beamer.
Yes.
Gorgeous.
Oh, thank you so much, Emer, for this space to share. It's been so fun to have this conversation with you and with everybody here. And yeah, just a delight.
And thank you for your vast perspective. You've taken us on this trip beyond 26,000 years and back again to the here and now. So it's so inspiring and mind expanding, consciousness expanding. So thank you for all you do, Jocelyn. Have you any final words you want to share before we wrap this up?
Well, I will just say, in this context of the time is now, I really invite everybody, especially at this magical solstice time, tune into your heart. See what you most deeply desire. Our hearts hold the knowledge of what we truly desire and what we truly came here to create and become in this lifetime. So tune in, make space for quiet time, for dreaming, for meditation, and just see what comes through asking your heart, right? Just ask, and you can talk to your heart. Say, my dear heart, please reveal to me what is most important for me to know about my life, about what I most deeply desire. See what guidance you get. It will be paradigm shifting, I would bet, and it will be really powerful to guide you in the next upcoming cycle of the year that we're moving into now.
That's beautiful. Yeah, it's all coming back to the heart, isn't it? The heart, the hearth, and
Yes.
Yarth, as I've shared before. Yeah, really beautiful. And yeah, so many gorgeous comments here. Thank you, everyone. There was one final question from Evie. If you have time, she wanted to know what's the poster behind you. I suspect it's Egyptian.
Yes, there's a couple things behind me. So this one is the Dendera zodiac right over here. Now the all the zodiac signs are in there, but they spiral out from the center, starting with Cancer the crab here, and it spirals out, going backwards through the zodiac, because it's talking about those 26,000 year cycles from how the sun moves backwards, through them over that 26,000 years, as I showed you in a couple of the charts. So that's what that is. This one is an incredible painting that I believe is meant to be a seraphim by a wonderful artist in Asheville named Catherine June. You can find her amazing visionary work at serpentfeathers.com. Highly recommend. She's a visionary artist.
I got tingles when you said that. Wow. Thank you so, so much, Jocelyn.
Yeah, absolutely.
Being here. I love when we connect live like this. There's so much energy to this.
Yes. So
Yeah.
fun.
And to everyone watching, be still, connect with your heart, like Jocelyn said, and we will see you again soon. Thank you, everyone. Bye for now. Bye. Thank you.